Департамент здравоохранения штата Орегон рекомендует гражданам соблюдать социальную дистанцию и носить маски в общественных местах. Если вы или ваши близкие получили положительный тест на COVID-19, очень важно, чтобы вы оставались дома в самоизоляции. Если вам нужна помощь во время вашего карантина, свяжитесь с представителями Славянского общественного центра. Наши сотрудники помогут вам с покупкой и доставкой еды, а также помогут частично оплатить ваши коммунальные расходы и аренду во время вашего карантина. Мы также поможем вам подать заявки на долгосрочную помощь на такие программы, как SNAP, Medic ID и другие программы штата. Звоните 971-225-71-23. Славянский общественный центр. 971-225-71-23.
Сделай свой бизнес успешней. Телефон рекламного отдела медиацентра Slavic Family 971 238 46 87. 971 238 46 87.
Внимание!
Редакция медиахолдинга Slavic Family не несет ответственность за содержание рекламных сообщений и авторских программ.
Добрый день, дорогие дамы и господа радиослушатели, телезрители. Пожалуйста, подключайтесь. В эфире программа Slavic Vote. Вы можете ее слушать на 10:40 AM и, конечно, смотреть на Facebook Live и на канале YouTube. Ну и сейчас я очень рад вам вновь представить Дмитрия Сащенко, он является исполнительным директором Slavic Vote, и, конечно, Ярослава Борисова, он является маркетинговым директором. Сегодня будет очень интересный специальный гость, это Джефф Кропф, и он уже также здесь у нас в студии, поэтому мы переключаем нашу 9-ю студию. Смотрите и слушайте Slavic Vote.
Добрый день, очень приятно быть еще раз на этой передаче. Меня зовут Дмитрий Сащенко, очень приятно, что вы все подключились на передачу Slavic Vote Live. У нас сегодня такая будет интересная передача перед выборами, которые проходят здесь, в Орегоне. Кто живет в Орегоне, вы, надеюсь, знаете, что у нас проходят выборы, которые будут на следующей неделе. Это вторник, 17 числа в мае. И надеюсь, вы все, кто слушает, уже знают про это и уже готовятся. И те, кто не знают, надеюсь, вы сегодня можете больше узнать, что за выборы, и приготовиться или подготовиться, чтобы быть готовым голосовать в следующий раз. С нами, как обычно, Ярослав. Ярослав, как у тебя самочувствие сегодня?
Да, я вам скажу, что сейчас в самом разгаре, я думаю, люди получают свои бюллетени. Даже, интересная такая история. Моя жена, мы уже живем в Ванкувере, наверное, не знаю, с какого там года, и моя жена даже получила орегонский бюллетень.
Серьезно?
Да, так что мы смотрели там, читали имена людей, и даже зашли на страницу, которая у нас есть на slavicvote.org, где мы, посмотрели, какие люди там рекомендуются. Я тоже вам советую зайти на нашу страницу, там есть ваши counties, которые можете посмотреть.
Да, Ярослав, спасибо большое, классно, что ты живешь в Ванкувере, как ты получил это?
Жена получила, она там жила, то я не знаю, мы стараемся узнать, почему, и каждый год приходят они. Она же там не голосовала, наверное, лет 10.
Да. Вы сейчас получаете также вашингтонские бюллетени, правильно?
Да, у нас уже были выборы.
Да. Конечно, это проблема, которая, я знаю, некоторые люди пытаются узнать, почему так происходит. Но это большинство происходит, потому что в Орегоне не сильно часто чистят, как говорится, voter rolls.
Да.
И просто люди переезжают, и они даже не очищают всю информацию старую, чтобы людям не отсылать бюллетени. Вот, к сожалению, это проблема, которую многие пытаются починить как-нибудь. Будем смотреть, потому что это, конечно, влияет на выборы, потому что любой может быть... Ты мог бы взять, проголосовать, отослать, и, скорее всего, ничего не случится тебе.
Не, я с женой посоветовался, мы будем воздерживаться от этого.
Да. Надеюсь, все так будут себя чувствовать, кто получили такие неправильные бюллетени. Да, как вы знаете, надеюсь, что эти выборы, которые будут проходить, это называются предварительные выборы. Это будут выборы, которые готовятся как general election или главным выборам, которые будут проходить в ноябре. И вот мы надеемся, что вы все будете голосовать, будете участвовать. Конечно, очень жалко, смотря на номера уже, которые я сегодня скидывал мой бюллетень на избирательный участок. И просто я даже не спрашивал, мне сама женщина сказала, что мы очень рады, что сегодня уже 10%, можно сказать, людей сдали бюллетени. Если подумать об этом, это только 10% живущих, кто может голосовать, поучаствовали в этих выборах. Это очень маленький номер, и это, конечно, очень тяжело представить, почему так происходит. И надеемся, что те 10% из лучших голосов, которые будут голосовать, потому что эти голоса будут говорить, какой будет у нас губернатор в ноябре на выборах на стороне республиканских и также на демократических, потому что каждая партия имеет вариант, выпускают они свои кандидаты, и тот один, который выиграет из всех тех 19, которые сейчас баллотируются на губернатора с консервативной стороне, один только выйдет. И вот эти будут выборы сегодня. На этой неделе последняя, можно сказать, выходная, а уже во вторник будут уже выборы. Значит, я хочу также напомнить, что мы выпустили недавно наши новости, или как это называется, newsletter. Там, если вы хотите получать от нас имейл по поводу, что происходит сегодня, на это время, по поводу выборов, по поводу любых очень важных тем, вы можете найти ссылочку на нашем веб-сайте slavicvote.org, чтобы подписаться на нашу электронную почту, чтобы вы могли получать самую важную информацию и также будете получать информацию, за кого голосовать, также некоторые наши видеосъемки, которые мы делали, потому что вот я выпустил, когда я разослал newsletter, я там также впустил все кандидаты или большинство кандидатов, которые будут баллотироваться. Те, которые мы имели на передаче, вы могли послушать их тоже и немножко больше познакомиться, не только их прочитать на ваших бюллетенях, но также их послушать и узнать ближе их, те, которые мы имели на нашем радио. И вот опять, мая 17 это последний день, что вы могли отослать ваш бюллетень. Вы уже сделали такой новый закон, что вы уже можете отсылать даже до последнего дня. Раньше такого не было, и в этом году первый раз, когда можно отослать на последний день, и он дойдет, и все будет нормально. Конечно, мы советуем, или я советую, только завозить на избирательный участок. Я свой завез, просто чтобы уточнить, что ваша роспись подошла, потому что очень важно, много людей, когда голосуют, они просто расписываются, и очень часто ваши голоса не услышиваются, если вы в последнюю минуту скидываете, потому что ваши росписи или подпись не подходит вашему бюллетеню. Ярослав, у тебя такое вот раз была проблема?
Нет.
Не было, да? Ну вот я знаю, что в прошлом году, когда были выборы в ноябре, и за прошлым году постоянно где-то, не знаю, очень большая сумма людей, которые просто их бюллетени не чистятся или не читаются, потому что они просто не сошлись с росписью. Это, конечно, чтобы не было проблем в выборах. Значит, не забудьте это сделать. Я советую, просто завезите на избирательный участок, и у вас будет все нормально. И вы можете уточнить, они скажут, все хорошо, ваш голос был услышан, и вы будете знать, что у вас все нормально. Значит, сегодня, как я сказал, у нас будет гость американец. Я прошу прощения наперед, что у нас опять будет американская передача. Я надеюсь, уже в следующей передаче перейдем на русский больше. Просто у нас так получается, что все наши гости американцы. И сегодня будет очень интересный гость, который бывший представитель города. Его зовут Джефф Краб, который мы сейчас представим. И он, как я говорил, бывший представитель города. Сейчас он также ведет радиопередачу на американском станции в Сейламе. И также он лидер американских церквей, которые ходят тоже по разным церквям и помогает пастырям, чтобы они были больше готовы к выборам, чтобы они участвовали больше и поощряли своих членов тоже быть больше участвовать в церкви и в выборах, и в обществе. Спасибо, что вы подключились на эту передачу Slavic Vote Live. Мы сейчас перейдем на американский язык. Я быстренько включу маленький перерывчик, и мы тогда перейдем на нашу обычную тему, обычную передачу. Спасибо, что подключились. Перерывчик, мы тогда перейдем на нашу обычную.
I want to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors for allowing us to be here on this program and all of our future programs. Some of the sponsors are Пельмени, Нина Мартынов, a real estate broker, America's Best Realty, Exceptional Homes, Dream House Construction, Imperial Cabinets, Solution 8020, Gold Cup Coffee House, Red Hills Construction, Ciberoni, Lanos Floral, Third House Media, and some others. Without these companies, without these organizations, we couldn't be on this program. And if you would like to be our next sponsor, reach out to us by visiting SlavicVote.org. We would love to partner with you and further our mission. Thank you very much. Jeff, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. How's your day so far?
Fantastic. And it's great to be here. It's something I've been looking forward to for actually a long time since I first learned that you had this radio show, Slavic Vote, in the years that we've known each other now, and having the opportunity to come and talk to the populations in the Portland metro area and in Washington that are from East European, and be able to just share a little bit about my life and what I think is important and what I think the opportunity is for people who are immigrants to this country to stand up and be engaged in politics, politically, especially for people of faith. It's just critical.
Absolutely. And we've known you for a few years now, and you've been very supportive, very helpful in everything that we do. So we appreciate that, and we look forward to always working with you and hearing your wisdom and your insights on everything. Thank you.
Well, such as it is.
Yeah.
Politics is it's like life. It's like everything else. It is always changing.
Yes.
And, a year ago, I would not have thought that the country would be where it is today, with inflation, with some of the disasters we've had in the foreign policy front. Obviously, right now, great concern is what's going on in Ukraine. All of that, plus this person who is our president, is the occupant of the White House, as I call this person, and our own governorship here and our legislature here and our city councils here. All of this is something that in my lifetime I would not thought that I would have seen. But we're seeing it. We're living it right now. And, we have this powerful opportunity in this great country, America, to stand up for what we believe, what we know is right for ourselves, our families, for our liberty. And if we don't, we're going to lose it.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Well, just before we came on the radio, I mentioned some of the numbers that are currently coming out.
Right.
Very concerning. 11% only in Multnomah County, where we are airing this program right now. Only 11% of people have voted so far. And just statewide is 13%. So that is very concerning. Average is about 30-40% in these primary elections. So we're really close to the election day, and only that many people only voted. So how do you see, why is that happening? Are we going to see a better numbers coming out, or what do you think?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Have you seen this before?
No, I've not seen this low. I've seen low turnouts like this for special elections, okay?
Yeah.
But not these kinds of primary elections, especially on both the Republican and Democrat side have some very contested primaries, right? Kurt Schrader in the 5th Congressional District, obviously the Democrat governor's primary, I think they have 15 candidates. And Republican primary, we have 19 governor's candidates. We have a contested U.S. Senate race, plus the 5th and the 6th congressional districts those are contested. So what you would think, and what normally happens, is that because all of these people are out there and they're meeting people and they're talking and they're getting support, that there'd be a lot more buzz and that people would be excited about voting, about turning in their ballots. It's not happening right now.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I can really attribute that to, I think, is the country is not in a good place right now. We have this incredibly high rate of inflation that's impacting us. We're seeing the stock market go down now because of that, because interest rates are going to come up. That's going to affect home building. That's going to affect our general economy. It will have to slow. That's a natural consequence of what happens. Yeah. I think everybody's worried about that. We've gone through this COVID period. We've gone through our governor, Kate Brown, whom I used to serve with in the Oregon House of Representatives, with her tyrannical ideas about vaccine mandates and shutting schools down and all of these things that really upset people because they're an infringement on our personal liberties and that of our families. You add all of that up, plus what's happening at the national level. So what the disaster of leaving Afghanistan, the really fearful part that Joe Biden, who is not a very lucid person these days mentally, is going to make a mistake in dealing with Vladimir Putin and what's going on over between Russia and Ukraine. And that could lead us into nuclear war. Those are realistic scenarios that, frankly, when I was a kid, we were worried about nuclear war in the 60s, but, it hasn't been a concern for a long time.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
It's a realistic possibility. You add all of this up, and I think what it's doing, it's creating this circumstance where people are saying, there's a lot of uncertainty here, and I don't know who to vote for. I get a lot of phone calls from friends saying, who do I vote for? And I think that uncertainty, along with there is a depression. Yeah. That's the only way I can describe it, about all of these things happening. And I think people are not wanting to engage, and that's a huge mistake. Because in low turnout elections, what always happens is the people who do get engaged, a very small number, determine who wins. And so that's why it's important that everybody listening to our voice right now, first of all, works with Slavic Vote to get registered to vote, number one. And that number two is they're active and they're learning about who the candidates are. And I know you guys have candidates on from time to time, and this is important because, especially immigrant communities, you have your entire future right here in front of you. You have to take hold of it. You have to vote. Be aware of who those candidates are, what they believe, what they don't believe. Ask them tough questions. Be involved. Listen, learn, but do vote. And the idea that Multnomah County is at 11% is shocking. Yeah. And but it tells me something about the mentality of what's going on in Multnomah County. Yeah. It tells me that a county that is mostly Democrat is not willing to vote. That tells me they're not excited, that they're depressed. That is an opportunity for people who believe in liberty, right? The candidates who are talking about liberty, are talking about freedom, those candidates to rise to the top and really have an opportunity to touch the hearts of people. Because today, we don't vote with our mind anymore. We vote with our emotions and our hearts. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't particularly like that, but it's reality. And if you're a candidate running for office, and I don't care whether you're liberal or conservative, you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, you've got to touch people's hearts. And this is the opportunity. If people in Multnomah County are not voting, that means they're not happy with what's going on. And the polls show that, by the way. So that's an opportunity for someone with the right message to get out there and to get that message out and to bring people to vote for them who normally wouldn't vote for them. And that's an opportunity. And that's why, again, I encourage everybody listening to this, if you're not registered to vote, it's a little late right now. You can't register right now for the primary, but you certainly can for the November election.
And you can still register, but you won't be able to vote in this election.
Right.
So you'll be able to still vote in the general
That's
election.
a good point.
Yeah.
You can still register,
Yeah.
but you won't be able to vote in this particular election.
And we always say, even if you can't vote right now, still register, because you're going to forget and it's going to pass by, and next thing you know, it's already November.
But low voter turnout is something that we have to look at as an opportunity, because not just for the big races like governor and Congress and Senate, but what about your local school board? Because the battle for this country, the soul of this nation right now, is in the local school boards, with critical race theory training, with all of the garbage that is being pushed down through the public education system onto our children, in my case, grandchildren. This is where the battle is. And that's why at every level, city council, county commission, school boards, your vote matters. It really does. And this is why, even if you're not going to vote for governor's candidates or whatever, you need to vote for the local people that are touching your life every day.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting that you just kind of brought that up, the fact that the low turnout for the primary election, which is going to be selecting the people from each party that are going to be running in the general.
Right.
We kind of ran into the same thing with the Slavic community, because there was a low turnout for voting, period.
Yeah.
But the motivators were way different. It was mainly an educational, I don't want to vote for the wrong person. Here you're saying people are preoccupied with things that are beyond voting, when the real cause of their problems is the fact that
Yes.
the people that are currently in office are not set up to, like you mentioned, on a national level. Do we really want our president talking to, another nation leader in the state that he's in? And, just a general feeling, people feel hopeless. But the issue is not to avoid the problem or the pain point,
Right.
but to actually go towards it. In other words, what would you say is the solution? I mean, is it just saying, okay, go out there, vote, and we still kind of have a chance of? I know Oregon is mainly. I'm from Vancouver, Washington,
Right.
but I know Oregon's mainly left leaning. So is Washington, actually, on that side. We're a brother and sister match here.
Yeah.
But what would you tell like the Slavic community when they're looking at the American community saying, if it's 10% here, that's almost like our numbers, maybe even lower or higher.
Probably, right in there.
So what I would say is this is your opportunity.
This is
to
it.
change your world. Because low voter turnout means that if you get a larger portion of the Slavic community voting higher than normal, because they get excited about races like city council and school board, because they have a reason to be excited. Their whole future depends on what their children are being taught, on decisions that city council members are making that have to do with your ability to exercise your free speech, stand on a street corner with a sign. Those things are your opportunity, because the lower the American, so-called American, I'm American born here, the lower our turnout is, the greater the opportunity is for a smaller number of Slavics, East Europeans, to come and to vote and to change the entire outcome. This is your opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. If you don't like your world, you better get involved in politics. We have an old saying here in America.
I love that saying.
Okay? If you don't do politics, politics will do you.
Yes, that's my favorite.
And that's
quote.
absolutely
Yeah.
true.
Well, I want to put things in perspective a little bit. So we talked about 10% turnout right now. I'm hearing the Slavic community is about a 5% voting bloc, just on the state level. So let's just imagine the entire Slavic community votes this election. 5% comes out and votes. That's pretty much half of what turned out so far. That can change everything. That could really
Absolutely
change the whole landscape of the political landscape here in Oregon, in Washington.
So let me give you a good example of that. Governor Kate Brown, when she won her very first election years ago in the 90s, she only won by 7 votes.
Yeah.
7 votes, that's it. We have a Republican from Redmond right now who's serving, Jack Zika, who won by 2 votes.
Right.
So every vote counts. And if you've got people in the East European community, the Slavic community here, that don't think their vote matters, it does. And it really does when you're talking about school boards and city councils and those kinds of races too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to rewind back a little bit and kind of start with who you are, I guess, because I think the folks listening...
I guess we blew past that, didn't we?
I think the folks listening are like, who's this guy?
Who's this guy?
We briefly...
Shut him up. Get him off the air.
He's on fire.
I think they love what you're saying, but they want to know a little more about you. So
I am a 5th-generation Oregon farmer from down between Albany and Eugene. Our family started farming there in 1871. I served 8 years in the Oregon House of Representatives. I've been involved in politics since I was about 16.
Oh, wow.
But there was a time period where I got really cynical about politics, okay? And one day I was complaining about it like a lot of people do, but wasn't really getting involved. And the person, I forget who the person I was talking to, said, you really ought to get involved. You don't like it, you need to get involved in changes. So I did. Being a conservative, being a Christian first and then a conservative, I gravitated towards the Republican Party, okay? And so I got involved locally, and the opportunity came to run for the Oregon House of Representatives. And I'd never served before, although I'd served a little bit on a city council.
How old were you?
I was 40 when I ran, okay? So I didn't like how government was affecting my farm and my life and my income. So the solution for me was to go run for office. It's a fantastic experience, a little bit of a scary experience, but once you learn a little bit about how to do it, it's really just human nature. It's connecting face-to-face, one-on-one with as many people as you can. So I went and ran. I got elected. I served 8 years. I left that and I got involved in the grassroots conservative movement all around the state, training people here how to fight City Hall and win.
Are you saying you believe in term limits?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in term limits. 100%.
That's awesome.
It would be the best thing in the world, especially
Very
in
rare.
Congress.
Yes.
We'd
Yes,
truly
it'd be
need term
a lot better
limits.
place if we had term
So
limits.
I was in the grassroots movement for a long time. I got started in talk radio purely by accident, but really because of my involvement in politics. And I started filling in for Lars Larson. He taught me how to do talk radio. Lars is a good friend of mine. And by the way, I got to say that to this day, Lars Larson is the only person I personally know that I think has a photographic memory. It's amazing what that man can remember. And he's my age. So, you know, I've forgotten so much, and this guy remembers it all. It's just incredible. So anyway, I do a morning political talk show called Political Coffee on KSLM. That's out of Salem. It's Salem's oldest radio station. I do it for 1 hour. It's call in.
And it's mostly people here in Salem, Clackamas County?
Yeah.
And what's the dial number?
It is 1220 AM
1220.
or 104.3 FM.
Right. So
we have a lot of people that listen to it statewide, but they listen on the internet.
Okay, yeah.
The website is kslm.news.
Right.
KSLM.news. And you can listen online. You can listen on your phone. And
It's like a small family that owns the station. or
yeah,
whatever.
it is. It's a family that owns the radio station, but we're all talk.
Right.
We're all political. We have 12 hours of live political talk radio from the time I go on until the time Mark Levin, who is our last national host, goes off the air. So it is. It's a labor of love. I love it. I still farm full time actually, and I do the radio show from my little home studio out on the farm, and it gets broadcast into Salem, and then they broadcast it out over the air.
So you mentioned that you got involved in politics since 16. Was it just the environment that you were in? Was it a family?
It kind of was. It was
been...
actually my late older brother who just passed away got me involved in a campaign for a local, actually a farmer friend of ours who used to babysit me when I was a kid, because my mother drove a combine for them. She got elected to the House of Representatives and had been a really great advocate for agriculture and natural resources. Okay, and so my brother was helping her, and he got me kind of involved with that, and that's how I got involved in politics. And you know, the old saying, again, is that once you get bitten by the political bug, the only thing that gets it out of your system is formaldehyde.
Right. Here's a trick question. So we talk about getting involved because it you can influence the government, or you can change things around for better.
Right.
Would you say, since you got involved, did you see some kind of change for the good, or how would you say, was it a waste of time, or was it something that you feel like your time spent was a good investment?
It was a very good investment of my time for just a host of reasons. Now, I would do things a little differently than I did, but you know, hindsight's 2020, right? We all feel that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been a powerfully good experience. It's what led me to go to war twice as an embedded radio broadcaster with combat infantry units in Iraq and Afghanistan. And from that experience, I was able to come back and work with Democrats and Governor Ted Kulongoski at the time to put together a package of legislation for our Oregon guardsmen and women who were ripped away from their families to go fight a foreign war somewhere for a year or so. And the toll that took on their families. And so we restored a lot of their benefits that had been cut in prior budget issues. That was something extremely worthwhile to me. And to this day, that is my what I consider to be my greatest achievement as a legislator. But there were other things, too, that we did. Again, for farm families, natural resource families, we passed some right-to-farm laws that protect our ability to continue to farm as Oregon grows and the communities push out into the farmland. We are protected from our ability to do the normal things that we do. I know you don't like it when I'm running a tractor at 2 o'clock in the morning next to your house, but rain's coming, I've got to get my work done. The laws that we passed help protect that. And then certainly trying to pass laws for things that we truly believe in, protecting our Second Amendment rights, certainly our free speech rights, First Amendment, protecting churches when it comes to zoning decisions, that kind of thing. A lot of local, again, this is why, even though you may not be a member of the Republican or Democrat Party, you can still vote for your local elective officials. And when local officials were shutting down churches being able to grow and to expand, we stepped up to the plate and passed a law, and we got that signed into law. So those things made it very worthwhile. Now, we're not in power, the Republicans, the Democrats are. So, okay, they're passing things that we don't like. And if the people voted for other representatives, those things wouldn't be getting passed.
Right.
That's why your vote matters. And this is why what you guys do at Slavic Vote, and I can't thank you enough for what you're trying to achieve here.
Thank you.
It really works.
Well, speaking of right candidates, right? I forgot to mention early in the program that we have released our material. Essentially, we call it, the SV Action voter recommendations. So it looks something like this for our viewers. It's just a sheet of paper of all the candidates that we have sourced. And I'm going to correct myself. We haven't done this because we can't recommend or endorse any candidates. But another organization who is also a Slavic organization, some of you might remember Lily Zhukova, who used to be part of Slavic Vote, but she had to, she stepped down to do this because she felt like this was a very important work. So essentially what we did here is remove additional barriers that the Slavic community had for language barriers or anything like that, and to make this as easy as possible. So you could just look at this sheet. If you trust this organization, you could essentially get the candidates that align the closest with the Slavic community. So
and let's talk about that for a moment, because not every candidate is going to align with you. Yeah. I mean, just ask yourself this question. Everybody in the audience, ask yourself this question. Do you agree with your spouse all the time?
That's correct.
You don't, do you? So Ronald Reagan was the first president I ever had the privilege of voting for, said something profound, and it's really true here when it comes to looking at the recommendations that are on that sheet. Reagan said, and I'll paraphrase it, if you can agree in politics, if you can agree with someone about 70% of the time, you should support that person, because we're human beings. We don't always agree on everything. So if your principles and values align mostly with what you've learned about these candidates, and again, they need to trust your organization to give them good recommendations. Maybe you don't agree with them on everything, but most things, you should support them, because what will happen if you don't and they don't get elected, someone that you really disagree with, that you really don't like, will get elected and will make bad decisions that hurt you and your family.
Right. Well, I even myself, I don't completely agree with everything that we have put on there, just because I feel like there's a few other candidates that could have had a better chance, but Lily is involved in that, so we're not going to influence her decisions. But I think she does a great work, and we're really proud of the work that she does.
Now, is this the first time you've put that particular recommendation out?
So we've done something similar in the last year.
You did, okay.
where it's essentially a recommendation. In the past, first 2 years that we've been doing this, we had to, kind of what Oregon Family Policy does. They put out all the candidates, where they send all the issues, and then people can decide. So because that took a lot of work, we had to scale down, and this was the best solution. And it is easier for the community because they don't have to look through all those candidates.
It's easier to read for certain, because I've seen those other great documents that Oregon Family Council puts out, and Oregon Right to Life and so forth, great conservative organizations that we identify with. But man, there's a lot to read there. Yeah. And this is so much simpler.
Right. Well, my concern about something like this, and I hope, the community will not rely on this forever, because I feel like, they should do their own research. They shouldn't be 100% relying.
Yes.
They should look into their own candidates. And Yaroslav, when you vote, what's usually your process of, do you trust just one source, or do you use multiple?
So the thing is, I think even what we ran into, like I said, my wife got an Oregon ballot.
Right.
And we were going through it. Her parents also got the same ballot, but they have different candidates on there.
Sounds like she's not registered with the party.
Yeah.
Or somebody's not registered.
It's just like, so you still have to go in and find out, have I heard about this person? A lot of these people are nonpartisan positions, like judges and
Sure.
So if you're really interested, you can go in online and just look up just watch a YouTube. I mean, you can tell so much from a person saying
Yes.
something on an
Yes.
interview, and you're like, okay, yes,
Right.
I feel like this person.
Well, just a
will,
pamphlet alone can tell almost everything you need to know.
yeah.
So what's interesting about the voters pamphlet, the way I use it is kind of what the candidate says, but then who is supporting that candidate. And if there's people that are supporting that candidate that I strongly disagree with politically, I'm not voting for that candidate.
Yeah.
Okay, it's that simple.
Yep.
Yeah. So, kind of not transitioning to a different part of this radio station, but you mentioned something earlier that part of what you do is work with churches, because the majority of our outreach is related to churches. That's how we started. The first year and a half or something, all we did was just went to churches. I mean, I don't
About
think
70th.
I went to my local church for like months
Yeah.
because we were just going
Right.
to
Oh,
church.
good.
Sometimes 2-3 services per Sunday,
Yeah.
and then the youth services midweek,
Right.
and then Wednesdays. So you said that you go and motivate people or pastors, or you do training for pastors.
So I help do a number of things. So my political training in the grassroots, when I was doing that after I left the legislature in 2007, I did that for a number of years. So I've learned how to train people how to run for office. And what I feel led in my heart to do now, that is the right thing for me, is to specifically go to churches and help them do a number of things. Number one is you got to have a pastor or a leadership of the church that's willing to be a little bit political, not them themselves, but allow Slavic Vote to come into the church, allow other things to happen. And one of the most important things is, first of all, above anything else you do, is prayer.
Yeah.
Okay. So at my church right now, we have a small group of people coming together to pray specifically for government, for elections, for government officials, even the ones that we don't like. And I have to tell you, it's hard for me to pray for Kate Brown because I know her very well. I served with her. And she has a very black heart. She needs a lot of prayer. She also needs prayer to block her evil ideas. Okay? Same thing with Joe Biden. I don't agree with Joe Biden, his presidency, and so many of his ideas. We need to pray for him. Okay? So we have people doing that. And I want to encourage you at your home church, those of you listening to me right now, if you don't have a small group that meets once a month for prayer, or we meet every week for prayer, and just pray specifically for government and elections, if you're not doing that, I really want to encourage you to consider doing that. Get your pastor's permission. We had to. In fact, we take, during elections, we'll take 1 or 2 Wednesday night services and dedicate it solely and strictly to prayer for elections and for government officials. You need to have someone who sort of leads that. You need to have an agenda about who you're praying for. We've been praying for the Supreme Court as they're making this decision about abortion, correct? That's very much in the news right now. So I want to encourage you to do that in your home church. That's the first thing. Second thing is consider having, and this is where I come in, consider having a training in your church for members of the church who might want to run for office or who might want to help someone else run for office. And I do this in about a 2-hour seminar. It's just 2 hours. We can do it on a Sunday afternoon. We can do it on a Saturday afternoon. I do it for free. There's no cost for it, okay? And it's usually a small group of people, 5 to 10 people in a church that are interested in running for office or helping someone run for office. And it's just the basics. How do you knock on doors? What do you say? How do you develop talking points that you can say to somebody riding in an elevator? It's called the 30-second elevator speech, right?
Yep.
So that when you're out knocking on doors, or you're at the Chamber of Commerce meeting or the Rotary meeting, and someone introduces you, in 30 seconds you can tell everybody who you are and why you're running for office. And that's the second most important thing that I teach candidates, is you have to know in your heart why you're running for office. What are your motivations? Because everybody who's listening to you as a candidate is going to be judging you based on your sincerity and your reasons for running. And if they think you're fake or your reasons are not sincere, they can pick up on that. You sort of said that. You can pick up on people's body language and what they say in YouTube videos and that kind of thing. It's really true. So I teach candidates how to do that. And the other thing that pastors should be willing to do is talk about the importance of being involved in elections and in government from the pulpit. Not be afraid to do it, not in a partisan way, not Republican or Democrat, but talk about it from God's values. Because God, our entire form of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislative, comes straight from the Bible, all of it. And so, in fact, in Isaiah, where they're prophesying Christ coming to the earth, it says the government will be on his shoulders. So pastors need to be willing to encourage their congregations to be politically aware, number one, and be politically involved. Not in a partisan manner. You don't violate any laws by doing that, at least not yet. If we keep electing people like Kate Brown, yeah, that'll happen eventually in Oregon. So those are the basic things that I try to help people of faith, and whether you're in a synagogue or whether you're in a Mormon temple, whether you're in a Mennonite church like is my background that I came from, worshiping on Saturday or Sunday, it doesn't matter. You're a Catholic or you're an evangelical like me, it doesn't matter. People who are being called by God to serve others in politics, people of faith, and it's not easy. In fact, this is the hardest time to do it right now, but it's worth it. It's worth it for your faith. It's worth it for liberty. It's worth it for future generations. If we don't step up, we're going to lose our liberty, and we're going to lose everything that my ancestors fought for in the Revolutionary War, and actually even before the Revolutionary War in this country, and everything that your people and you all emigrated to this country for, liberty and the opportunity to live free. Right. We're going to lose that unless your community steps up to the plate, and frankly, a whole lot of other folks.
Wow. Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. We had Wednesday on last week.
Oh, you did?
And
good.
He's
good. Isn't he wonderful?
He's a wonderful man. Yeah. But one thing that he said on a different show that I was listening to, he said that very simple words that really was profound to me, that I try to always mention to people. But people who are always complaining, people who are looking at what's going on around, if they don't vote and if they don't get involved, they don't have the right to complain. They don't have the right to talk about how everything is negative, because they're not the ones, they're not doing anything about it.
You're not participating in a solution.
Yeah.
And that's what we have with our form of government. In our constitutional republic, we are not a democracy.
Yeah.
Okay, we are a constitutional republic where the rights of the minority are protected by law from the tyranny of the majority. Yep. That's the definition of a constitutional republic. We, the people, determine what that is. Yep. And that's why, to all of you out there that are watching this or listening to this, please understand that your involvement in politics means everything for your future, your children's future, your grandchildren's future, and future generations. And if that means something to you, then you need to be involved. Please understand that your vote matters. Your ability to be educated on the candidates and on the issues means that you can have, like I tell my radio audience, you can have a persuasive conversation with someone who's persuadable. Not an argument, not debating people, but you can have a persuadable conversation with someone who's persuadable and bring them to us. And I'm telling you right now, I've never seen a time like this ever in this state of Oregon. And I've lived here my entire life. Okay, I've never seen this profound opportunity where people who normally don't agree with us on our conservative principles are willing to talk with us and have those conversations and frankly vote with us and vote for our candidates. So this is why all of you, please understand you can change your world, but be engaged, be involved politically, and have those conversations with people, not arguments, but persuasive conversations.
Right. Wow. Thank you. Yeah. Do you have any questions before I switch to my next topic? Well, my question was, When you look, for example, I know we talked briefly about this. When people, some of the questions that we get all the time, and we covered this a little bit. When you look for candidates, when you look at the ballot,
Right.
again, we talked about this a little bit. What are some of the characteristics, and what are some of the things that you look at some of those candidates, and when you make the decision to vote, what are those things that you look for?
Well, this is why you need to at least understand who they are on a personal level if you can, like watch a YouTube video of them or a Facebook video or whatever. So you get a sense of how, what you need to judge is their sincerity and their honesty,
Right.
okay? Because this is sort of the biblical principle of servant leadership, right? So Christ was our model for that. And we need to, as people that are asking for your vote, we need to follow that model in terms of saying, look, this is why I'm running, because this is really important to me. Right now, we got a lot of parents who are upset at what's gone on in our schools, and they're running for local office. They're running for school boards. They're starting organizations to support those people who are running for school boards. And they did that because it became very personal to them. So when you're running for office, you need to have a seriously personal reason why. Out of that comes sincerity and honesty towards people. Now, I have to say, Bridget Barton, one of our friends and your friend, she did the best thing, because when you run for office, you put your whole life out there. Your life story, your life history, right? Okay? Everything you've ever said or done. Yeah. Like if I ever ran for office again, which I'm not, I can assure you, okay? Every word I've ever said on the radio, someone would scrutinize, okay? Bridget came out early and talked about how she overcame her alcoholic addiction. That was the smartest thing she could have done, because now no one can use that as a weapon against her. And so if you don't let things that have happened in your past keep you from running for office or helping people who are running for office, because again, there are ways that you can, it gets back to your motivations. Why am I running? And can I do this sincerely and honestly? And can I be honest with people? So those are the two things I look for first off. And then if I'm satisfied that that person is honest and they're running for the right reasons, then what do they really believe? I need to figure that out. And if I can agree with them on most issues, then I probably ought to support them. That's what I look for in a candidate.
Wow. Well, you kind of mentioned what I was about to ask next is, are you planning to run again in the future?
No, I'm not. Well, my father passed away, unfortunately, in 2020 and left me his farm to run. So I farmed 600 acres of grass seed and soon to be other crops, all by myself. Okay, wow. I have no help. It's just me, and it's a lot of work.
Did you say you had kids, right?
I have a stepson, but he's in Washington State. He's a very successful businessman up there, and I'm blessed to have a couple of grandkids with him. And in fact, I'm going to be flying up there in my airplane. I'm blessed to own an airplane and fly off the farm. My father did, and few people have that opportunity, and I'm very blessed to have it. So I'm going to be flying my airplane up to see my grandkids in a couple of weeks. But no, I'm not running for office again. My goal now is to help others take all that I have learned about how to successfully run for office, how to serve in public service, because right now that's not easy either. It's hard enough to get elected, but it's even harder to serve now, because when you do, especially if you're going to go to a school board and you're going to take on controversial decisions, the left, the communists as I call them, will come after you hard. And you have to be willing to stand up and stand firm. And that's why I say to those of you, even if you're not going to run for office, you need to stand behind the people that are. If they're willing to stand in the gap for you, you need to stand behind them because they're going to need it. Okay? So my goal is to help others run for office and to do that successfully and stand up for their principles and their values.
Right. Well, so I have a few friends who I keep always tell them that you should run for office, and I did myself as well. So I'm not just talking.
Right.
And I believe, I have a feeling that all of us, everybody who at least has some sense of running for office or wants to run for office, they should run for office. There doesn't have to be a big position.
No.
It could be water board or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
I feel like even advisory committees, those
Yes.
are important. So when you talk to candidates, do you ever come across a candidate or somebody who wants to run and you tell them, no, you shouldn't be running? Have you ever had that before?
I have done that. It's been pretty rare because I believe that if you have a burning desire to go run, you should run. Okay, but again, your motivations have to be right. And I think there's probably been 2 cases where I've ultimately advised them not to run. It is the higher you go for a higher office, the harder it is on your family. Okay, so your family has to be fully aware and fully supportive of you running for office. And if they're not, it's going to be a disaster. It's not going to turn out well for you. It's not worth you, even if you have the right reasons for serving, it's not right for you or worthwhile for you to go serve in public office and lose your family. Nothing's more important than your family. And I didn't understand that at a level that I should have when I ran for office, because I didn't understand that how big of a time commitment it can be as you get to the higher offices. If you're running for school board and city council, those can be pretty big time commitments. I served 17 years on a fire board, for a rural fire department, and that wasn't so bad in terms of time commitment. You can manage those things. But the higher you go and the greater the demands are for you to come and speak, I will tell you that when you're on the city council or you're on the school board and you're at the grocery store, you're at the gas station, people want to talk to you. These are the people you swore an oath to serve, right? So it's your duty to talk with them. You don't want to blow them off. But when your wife and your kids are standing there and they're like wanting to get out of there and go home or go whatever, it becomes a bit of an imposition. So your family needs to understand that this is a sacrifice for everyone. It's not just the person who's serving.
Right. Well, sounds good.
So we're kind of ending or getting close to the end of our radio station here. I have kind of a question that's been kind of brewing a little bit.
Okay.
I think a lot of people will relate to it. So the past election, this is just coming from the Slavic community. We did a lot of legwork prior to the last national election for the president. Didn't turn out as people planned or hoped for. And people felt like the system didn't pan out for them the way that it's set up. And we hear that a lot in the news, especially from a lot of college kids, that, we got to think of a new system when it's worked for over 200 years just fine. And then Dinesh D'Souza just came out with 2,000 Mules. I mean, it's helping, but it's not helping in a way as far as bringing that integrity that you were talking about. If we want politicians to have integrity, to have actually doing what they say, and that sincerity, what kind of hope do we have for, let's say, the next presidential election? And
be very hopeful, and let me tell you why. Because first of all, awareness. We don't like the outcome of the elections, and we know that there was substantive fraud, especially in other states, highly documented. And Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules documentary, it presents irrefutable evidence. Okay. So awareness is the first step in overcoming, say, an addiction. My late brother had overcome alcoholism, as Bridget has done. But you had to become aware that you were alcoholic first before you could allow yourself to get help. So for us who are very suspicious of the changes that have been made in a long-term voting system that's worked very well, okay, for us to fix it and have confidence in it, we have to become aware first. So that's what Dinesh D'Souza is doing. That's what a lot of other people who are doing that. They've done a very good job of it, both in Wisconsin and down in Arizona. They've uncovered, again, irrefutable, illegal anomalies that need to be prosecuted and need to be fixed. So awareness is first. The second thing is, because we're aware, now we have new rules that are being passed in many of these states. and we have people who are committed to going to the polls and watching, or in this case, watching the vote counting as it's done in Oregon, okay? That's good because we need more of that. We don't have enough of those people. And when you're looking over the shoulder of someone who maybe might cheat, who's an official, and you're looking over their shoulder, it's harder for them to cheat, right? But if nobody's there, it's easier for them to decide that, okay, let's run the ballots through a second time. The third reason you should be hopeful is because I truly believe that with what we've experienced here in this nation and the suspicion about it and the obvious outright fraud that again is documented, that we're not going to let it happen again, okay? And that means that there are lawsuits that are now being initiated from our side to not let those fraudulent activities happen. This is going to have to go through the courts. There are laws being passed at the local level and at the state level to try to fix these things, especially in those battleground states. And we're having some success with that, okay? So those things are in place, and I guarantee you when it comes around to 2024, the presidential election, that there are going to be a lot more safeguards in place to never let that scam happen again. The fraud of this last national presidential election cannot be allowed to happen again. It will not be allowed to happen again because people are getting it figured out. And here's my prophecy, if you will. There are going to be things that are going to be exposed soon that are going to make this so that we, those of us who believe in liberty and believe in freedom, are going to have greater confidence moving forward. And people who are guilty of fraud are going to be exposed, and they're not going to be able to fight against it because everybody knows it's wrong and it's illegal. On top of being morally wrong, it's illegal to do it. And I predict to you there will be prosecutions. Is it going to happen at the federal level? Probably not, but it may be happening at the state level. Just be watching for that over the next few months, maybe the next year or two. There are people who are doing some very, very good work into what's been happening behind the scenes. Maybe it relates to us in Oregon. I don't know yet. We're still working on that. But be assured, we're going to if it's there, we're going to find it and we're going to uncover it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we even had one of our Slavic Vote board members that had a little tampering with their ballot, and they haven't got any reply from the state. So yeah, I mean that's really good that you brought those three solutions, or that's going to actually fix that.
And I don't think just giving up and just letting just not voting is a solution. That's the last thing.
Yeah.
That's what the other side wants you to do.
Yeah, that's what they want us to do.
Yeah.
That's why they intimidate us. That's why Antifa's out there. That's why Black Lives Matter protesters are out there with Antifa attacking people. Okay, That's why you have a Latino student group, supposedly, that's aligned with Antifa down in Salem that literally intimidates and harasses parents who go to the Salem Kaiser School District to show up to a meeting. In fact, I covered this on my radio show today, a long expose on this with the actual data and exposing who these people are. When a parent goes to one of those meetings, they fill it up with their people so parents don't have time to even talk. There's no room to sit.
Right.
And then in the parking lot after the school board meeting is over, these people harass them. They take pictures of them, of their license plates, and then they harass them at their places of work. This is Antifa-like fascist intimidation, and it's wrong morally, and it's wrong ethically, and it borders illegal behavior, okay?
Right.
So understand that if you're going to take a stand today in Oregon for what you believe in, it may cost you some harassment. Okay, fine. I was attacked along with a group of pastors down on the waterfront, Portland waterfront, by Antifa, okay, when Pastor Artur Pawlowski was here, right?
Yeah,
I was in there. You were there.
Yeah.
You experienced that same kind of physical attack. Okay, we can't allow that to happen. And people in Portland know it's wrong. And they know that 100 consecutive nights of rioting in downtown Portland, rioting and violent protests, was wrong. Because the leaders, the political leaders that maybe some of you didn't vote for or against, are the ones who made the decision to let that happen, to tell the police to step back, to not prosecute DA Mike Schmidt, not prosecute 892 violent people arrested for violence in the streets. Right. Those are things that are wrong. Elections can change all of that. And that's how we'll change and restore order and restore future and hope and lawfulness back to this state.
Yes, elections have consequences.
They do.
And that's why I hope the turnout turns out to be a lot better than what we're seeing so far. I hope there's people who are going to be dropping out their ballots the last minute at least, and we are going to see 30, 40, 50%. And I guess I can't even, I'm wondering, this low turnout, is it going to benefit the left or the right? Because it's such a low turnout, like you wonder, is it both sides are not coming out and voting, or maybe one side is less than others? It's really interesting. I think it's
going to benefit whoever turns out their voters.
Right.
So for every one of you that are watching this and listening right now, if you have your ballot sitting on your table and you haven't turned it in, you need to. This is incredibly important. How would you feel if a school board person or a city council person got elected by 1 or 2 votes and you didn't vote? And that person passes city ordinances or brings critical race theory training, racist, which is racist in its own nature, brings transgender things into your school district to teach your kids that you know are morally wrong according to what you believe and you believe is right according to the Bible. How would you feel if you hadn't voted and they won by just 1 or 2 votes? You must vote, please. Don't think it doesn't count, because it does.
Yes, thank you. Well, we're about to close down this program. Last few words, if you want to say. I know you've been doing a great job already talking to the community so well to the camera. Last few thoughts, and we'll just start closing down this program.
So first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
I've heard about the opportunity to do this for a long time from other people who've been here, and I'm honored to have a few minutes to share with you a little bit about my life experience in politics. I would rather live in a free country and be involved politically and, suffer a little bit of harassment from the other side and so forth, than live in a country where many of you came from, where you don't have liberties and you don't have freedom. Freedom is a precious thing.
They still don't have it.
That's right. They don't. And I saw that with my own eyes in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay, they don't have the wonderful freedoms that we have here. You can't do what we're doing here on a radio station in Afghanistan or Iraq. Right. You can't.
Well, that's why I enjoy doing this, because it's essentially exercising our freedom of speech. It's the first hand.
So please get involved. If you are in a church and you think that your church should be at least praying for your leaders and praying for good outcomes and your school boards, so forth, then I am always available through Dimitri and Slavic Vote. You can contact me through them. I'd be happy to come to your church and put on a 2-hour seminar about how you run for office, or any advice that I can give you. At the very least, please pray. Pray for our leaders. They need it desperately.
Yeah. Yaroslav, any last thoughts?
Good. I think we covered a
Yeah,
lot.
we did. Well, just for the folks who are listening and watching, if you are this Sunday, we're going to be doing some workshops at some of the churches and going out there and helping folks register and vote and fill out their ballots. So if you're watching this and if you go to a church and you have the ability to print these out, you just can find these on our website, slavicvote.org. You can print these, hand out to the folks in church, maybe even help them fill out their ballots at the end. Do whatever it takes. Get a few people to turn in those ballots. It'll help that number. It'll help just the entire process.
Right.
And if you're watching this maybe in a month or two in the future, and we always put this out on our website. So if you're watching again, maybe in November, October next year, we have these available closer to the election date. If we don't, reach out. We'll have some kind of resource for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us at any time. We're happy to help. In fact, we're even happy to come and and host a registration drive or a ballot workshop at your church or at your at your work or at your place of community service. So we're happy always to be here for you, and with great folks like Jeff and others, we can organize something a little bit more formal and make it a lot more accessible. So thank you for tuning in. The time is run out, and we're happy to be on this program. We're happy to have Jeff with us.
Thank you.
And Yaroslav, always good to have you. Thank you for tuning in. Again, this is the last program before the election. The 11% turnout rate is very discouraging, but we're hoping for the best results, and I'm hoping there's a bunch of people who are going to be dropping off their ballots this weekend. So this has been a great program. Thank you, Jeff, again.
Go vote, please.
Yes.
Vote.
Yes, that's about it. I appreciate you guys coming on. You tune in to Slavic Vote Live. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and follow us on the social media. And reach out if you have any questions. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for folks who can join our team and move this mission forward to be even more successful. So thank you for tuning in. You were listening to Slavic Vote Live, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you.
Oregon has a beautiful, beautiful